Hey, folks, Zach Osterman here, IU Insider, Indianapolis Star. He is Mike Niziolek, Bloomington Herald-Times. It is Tuesday, August 25th, 2026. Mike, this is, as the show title says, the Big Bad Beautiful 2026 season preview. I threw that in there just because it's going to be big. It could be bad. It could be beautiful. It's difficult to say. But we're going to get into schedule predictions. We're going to get into some. I mean, I don't know how bold they're going to wind up being. At least my predictions. I don't know how bold your predictions are going to be. And then you always bring some fun kind of over-unders that we can talk through. And at the end, we'll just kind of wrap up with maybe the tenor of what we think Indiana is going to do this season, where we think this season might kind of wind up. And, ultimately, just for the record, we are not going to go through all the way through the playoff. There's too many variables there. I think we'll probably stop either at the end of the regular season or maybe if we think they're going to be in the Big Ten championship game, we'll talk about that a little bit too. Some housekeeping, just a reminder, please, if you haven't already, Unthinkable to Unstoppable, how Curt Cignetti and the Indiana Hoosiers stunned college football. If you'd like to walk back through last season, that is available now for pre-order on Amazon. I'll keep that QR code up on the screen for anybody watching live or on YouTube. I will just kind of flash that up sort of every so often. You can scan that, and that'll take you to the Amazon pre-order page if you are so inclined. We really appreciate it. And then if you'd also like, there'll be a link in the show notes, and a reminder that next Thursday Mike and I will be at the Wood Shop at Upland over on 11th Street in Bloomington, talking with people about the book, the process behind it, just sort of what we got, sort of out of the process of reporting it, things we learned, sort of things we observed, stories we picked up, just kind of getting people ready for that. As people are obviously getting ready for the season that we're about to preview, Mike, it is very, very close to upon us. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm all right.
Good and all right aren't quite the same thing.
Well, they're equivalent.
I mean, they live in the same neighborhood. I don't know if good and all right.
They're neighbors.
Yeah. We're going to start with schedule predictions today, and we're going to go game by game, but obviously not all games are going to be created equal. So we'll start, but we'll kind of take this in chunks because I think that the season kind of breaks down that way a little bit. We'll start with the non-conference. We've seen a couple people in here. Hoop said his heart says 11-1, his head says 10-2. Mark Hess says he's a true believer and parishioner of the Church of Cignetti. 12-0, my homies. Agent All-Star said Cignetti told him he used Zach picking Bama as bulletin board motivational material for the team. I don't think Curt Cignetti really does bulletin board material that much. And certainly I don't think he gets it from my terrible writing. But if I say 3-0 in the non-conference, do you have any objection at all?
No, I mean, I don't. I like I said, the producer. I was vetoed on the structure of this. I thought we should just do there's a handful of games that will define this season, and they ain't in the non-conference. Mike wanted to actually ain't in the first half of the season. So, it's midway point where it matters.
Mike wanted to do it in tiers. My argument for kind of doing it at least somewhat chronologically was kind of the idea of mapping out sort of where Indiana is across the course of this season. I don't have any real objection either to 3-0 in the non-conference. I mean that, if Indiana got Western Kentucky week 1, I would at least wonder if Western Kentucky could do a little bit of what Old Dominion did to Indiana, because there is kind of a winning culture down there under Tyson Helton and everything. But history tells us that by week 3, Curt Cignetti teams are pretty much kind of beginning to hit on all cylinders. The opener then against future Heisman Trophy winner Aiden Chiles and Northwestern. Mike likes to give me grief for my belief in Aiden Chiles. I will never let it go. It's Friday night in Bloomington. You would imagine that's probably the night that feels like the first sort of aggressive celebration of everything Indiana accomplished last season, because it's a conference game, because it's, do you think they'll, At some point, they're going to wheel the trophies out, but I feel like the first Big Ten game at night is going to feel a little bit different. That's what I'm saying. Maybe not a celebration of the championship, but like I feel like that first Big Ten game at night, because the non-conference just does not feel.
They had the celebration ceremony. I don't. You think Kurt's going to allow that? Like,
yeah, that's tough.
Because his whole thing,
the celebration ceremony was.
The whole thing is like you go around.
Celebration ceremony was very muted.
What?
The celebration ceremony was very muted.
Well, I mean, it was very cold. That was nobody's fault.
But I'm saying, like, I mean, they're going to do something at some point. Like, someone's bringing that trophy out onto the field at some point.
But I don't know how that would impact the Northwestern game. I think the Aiden Childs of it all probably does more so. Like, you like pumped him up in
he gets to hoist the trophy.
Your weekly, your game by game preview made it sound like he had really came close to beating Indiana.
It did not.
That's revisionist history there.
It did not.
I don't think the third time.
It said that he has enjoyed some success individually against Indiana in otherwise heavy losses.
If you turn the games off after the first quarter, both of them, you would think that.
All right, wait. You keep talking. You keep lying to the people while I find it. Over 2 games, 43 of 57 for 436 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions.
He was knocked out of the first one.
Bad.
He was knocked out of the first one, didn't even finish, and then the combined score.
Do you remember when their backup basically was just running away from the? Because Michigan State's offensive line was terrible in 2024, and their backup was just running for his life.
And the combined scores, I think, outweigh his mediocre stat line. Like, I mean, that's ridiculous. Like,
there are better quarterbacks with worse stat lines against Brian Haynes' defenses over the last 2
But I mean, like, he had some empty calories. Like, I don't think that gets
no. I didn't. All I said was that he has enjoyed some individual success against Indiana, and when you compare that to the majority of Big Ten quarterbacks against this team over the last 2 years, that is better than the average.
But I just don't think. I mean, like the final score has to impact how you view that.
And Chip Kelly, if this was 2011, like Northwestern would be really dangerous. I think.
So, are you saying Aiden Childs has Bryant Haynes' number? Do you want to say that right now? That could be bulletin board material.
Bold prediction material. SW10. I just wanted to mention this. Do we have a night game currently scheduled? The only one on the schedule for the moment is. Because Howard's not a night game, right? So I think the one on the schedule right now is Northwestern. Obviously, wouldn't be surprised to see another night game on the schedule. I don't know if they'll play another one at home. I think you and I both have maybe a belief that Rutgers game might wind up being a Big Ten Saturday night football game. I think Ohio State's probably going to be a battle between CBS and Fox. I'm guessing one of the two will get that slot. So I don't know if Indiana's going to host a second night game. I mean, Purdue's been a night game the last 2 years. Maybe that's going to be a night game again. I don't know. They haven't announced a kickoff for that yet, have they?
Which one?
The bucket game, because it was a night game each of the last 2 years.
I assume that it would be because is it on Friday still?
I don't think so. I think they moved it to Saturday this year. No. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, if it's on Friday, then yes, I think it's likely to be a night game. Anyway. Point of order, 3-0 in the non-conference. We don't think Indiana's going to have any trouble with Northwestern on Friday night in their opener on September 25th. So we're at 4-0, I assume.
Yes.
4-0 in September, which gets us to an October that I don't think Indiana's going to have any real trouble with Rutgers, but it is worth pointing out Indiana's got to go on the road 3 times in 4 games.
Point of order. So so apparently, like within the last hour, Rutgers announced that game is at night, and it's the blackout is back for Rutgers football homecoming against Indiana.
All right, let me change my pick. Hold on. I need to revise things. We need to pull back. I need to call the printer, pull back the paper.
Fans are encouraged, obviously, to wear black and be in their seats by 7:30 for a pregame light and fireworks spectacular. That sounds exciting.
Yeah, you're going to be there. I won't make that trip. That's the only game I'm missing this year. You will be making that trip. So you enjoy that fireworks spectacular. Here's my question to you with Indiana Rutgers. Who has more fans in the stadium?
I mean, this fireworks spectacular, how do you miss it? I mean, I guess it's homecoming. So, I mean, like probably Rutgers. Like, and if you're spending,
it was homecoming for Maryland last year, and I think Indiana had more fans.
Well, yeah, I know Maryland was the game that you will remember always. But I think if you're an Indiana fan and you're trying to budget this season, like assuming that they make the playoffs, you've got some other, I think, better trips in Nebraska and Washington. You probably save money and don't.
Yes,
don't
but the reason why Maryland was so well attended was because of how many fans there are in the East Coast.
It's an 8 o'clock game. It's I don't know,
but like you can get hotels in North and Central Jersey without any trouble. If you're coming from New York, you can get into and out of and into the city without a ton of problem. Yes, it's a night game, but you won't care that much. If you're coming from somewhere in New Jersey or Philly or even Washington, you can get a hotel room somewhere in North or Central Jersey without a ton of trouble. That's why there were so many Indiana fans at Maryland last year, because they could get hotels in Northern Virginia or Baltimore without much trouble. I learned a while ago to stop underestimating how many Indiana fans will turn out when they are energized for Indiana coming out to the East Coast. I suspect that is going to feel 50-50. And it'll be interesting because now I guess all the Rutgers fans will be wearing black, so you'll be able to tell the difference. But I assume we have no real qualm with Indiana beating Rutgers.
Correct.
Okay, so we're 5-0. We're rolling here, baby. Nebraska at Nebraska is one where I just suspect this is a game where, however improved Nebraska might be, and I suspect they might be improved. I think they did some good things staffing-wise, offensive line this offseason. I think maybe a little bit more certainty at quarterback, or at least experience at quarterback.
There was no uncertainty at quarterback in terms of.
No, I meant more experience. Because Raiola was a true freshman, and then he had injury issues. What's his name? I can't remember. Calandrio, the UNLV transfer. Like, there's just more
former Virginia quarterback.
This is one where, though, and listen, it's a great atmosphere. Anyone who's ever been to Lincoln will tell you it's like one of the great, sort of game day atmospheres. It'll be a sellout, etc. But this is one where it is impossible for me to see past Indiana's defensive strength in a game like this. That even if the crowd's an issue for a little while, even if Nebraska's a little bit better, I just don't think Nebraska's prepared to move the ball in Indiana, essentially. And that this might be one of those games, like a Michigan State last season, where, you have to wait a little while for the offense to warm up and kind of take control of the game. But I think Indiana just is going to have to, unless there is some kind of, and I guess we should just say this about our predictions in general, like we have to assume relative good luck with health and with injuries. But assuming that, this is a game where I just don't think Nebraska's got the personnel to consistently move or score the ball in Indiana. And at that point, whether it ends 31-10 or 38-13, or if it does turn into some kind of, Michigan State-esque laugher from 2024 and it's 47-10, I just don't think Nebraska's got the personnel to move and score the ball. And while Indiana may not just sort of come out of the traps flying and be up 28-0 after one quarter, I think Indiana wins this game because its defense is just so controlling and so stifling.
Yeah, I mean, Nebraska's got to replace the Big Ten's leading rusher, Emmett Johnson.
Yeah.
I think the only way that they can make any headway in this game is if they can run the ball. And, because 2 years ago they obviously did not, and didn't, support Raiola at all, sort of, try to make that game easier for them. I just don't, like I said, I don't think it's a good matchup for them. The quarterback had success at UNLV, not quite as prolific, the previous 2 years at Virginia. I just see it as, even if the game's closer than it was in 24, it's still
it would be hard for it to be bigger than it was in 24. That wasn't the time.
But even if
at the time, that tied an Indiana record for margin of victory in Big Ten games.
I'm saying, even if Nebraska has made gains, it's still,
and it's at home.
it's I mean that'll help, but like it's still I just don't think it'll be a lopsided win in Indiana's favor. I guess I feel like.
Hoop says Nebraska's a trap game. I argue against this simply because I have never seen a Kurt Cignetti team treat a game like a trap game. Like when they struggle, they struggle because
Ohio
the other
State
team
means less.
No, I get it. No, I understand that.
I think actually it would mean less if they don't take care of business. That becomes a much less important game if they have a loss on their schedule. Like, or I mean,
no doubt.
I guess attractive game to
I mean more the idea that like I've just never seen a Kurt Cignetti team go into a game and basically get trapped. Is my point. Like when they've lost on their merits. Right. Get me out of the escape room. Where's Billy Napier? But like when they've lost on their merits. When they have had to fight to beat teams, it has been against good teams. Like Iowa was a good team. Penn State, as we both learned in reporting Unthinkable to Unstoppable, was a game that Kurt Cignetti had an immense amount of respect for the opponent, the situation.
Well, but I think you have to make a distinction there too. It was NFL talent on the roster that even if they were struggling, and Nebraska does not have that kind of talent right now.
Certainly not as we perceive it. I mean, to your point, like you mentioned Emmett Johnson, the Big Ten's leading rusher last year. I have a good friend who grew up a Nebraska fan. He went to IU, but he's from Omaha. And he basically said to me, he said, if we still had Emmett Johnson, I would think we maybe had a chance in this game, but I just don't see how without it. And I think I agree with that. All right. So we are at 6-0, and it's time to talk about, I guess, the first big one, which is Ohio State. I picked Indiana in this game, and basically I considered sort of 5 things when I was breaking down, sort of like where to go with my predictions. I said head coach, quarterback play, obviously home field advantage, sort of like defensive strength as a general idea, and then line of scrimmage talent. And I think, I think he, as good as Josh Hoover was at TCU, I think you have to give Julian Sayin the advantage here in at the quarterback spot. It might be a wash defensively. I think Indiana, it's hard to look at where kind of, Ohio State's turned over its offensive line coach. So maybe we're saying something different by week 7. But I think it's difficult to look at what Ohio State lost last year, what Indiana kept, and not say Indiana's better at the line of scrimmage. It's obviously in Bloomington. You don't think Indiana's more proven at the line of scrimmage right now than Ohio State?
Well, I mean, on the offensive line, they were returning 4 starters. They moved one guy around, but I mean, they have 4 returning starters on the offensive line.
Yes, and do you remember what Indiana did to that offensive line last year?
Sure, but I mean, like they're going to take a step forward. Like I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, I think that's 7 total returning starters. One of them, Jeremiah Smith. The other's a 1,000-yard rusher and a Heisman finalist. So, like, yeah, I mean, the offensive line struggled against the best defense in the country, but a full year.
Ohio State was arguably the best defense in the country, but I get your point.
And so, like, I think Ohio State's offense is going to be pretty good.
I think it's going to be good, although I'm admittedly perhaps biased by personal experience against certain coordinator decisions. But I do think Arthur Smith is going to platform at least some of that talent in the right ways. Mark Hess with a bold call that I've actually wondered myself, saying Ohio State with Texas, Illinois, at Iowa, at IU, USC, Oregon, and Michigan won't make the CFP. I think Ohio State might wind up being a team that flirts with having to put the committee in a position to make a decision on a 9-3 team just because the schedule is so much. Anyway, I broke that. I broke to a place where I basically said I thought that those matchup sort of factors I considered were almost even in this game, and then I just tilted toward Indiana because it's in Bloomington. I don't know if you felt differently.
It's another one of those games where it's like if you play it 10 times, it's 5-5. Like
Mm-hmm.
it just feels like that these teams are going to be evenly matched. Like the same things I said, sort of about Ohio State's offense. I sort of feel about Indiana's defense that they might be better, just because we've seen, like, you've talked a lot about the talent on the defensive front, them being just sort of like bigger there than they were in the past. Like I've talked about sort of the experience they have in the middle of the defense.
Not even bigger. And this has always been the difference with Ohio State and Indiana teams, deeper. Like in a place where it always got to Indiana in those near misses against Ohio State, or those games where, either it was a near miss or it was close until like 10 minutes left or something like that, was eventually just the weight of snaps would wear Indiana down, and Ohio State's depth would tell. And that's what I think Ohio State can't do to this team.
And to the commenter's point, to Mark's point, that they will have played Texas, Illinois, and Iowa before Indiana. So obviously their early part of their schedule is a little more formidable, regardless about even the back part. And then they will have a break, because if they had gone at Iowa to at Indiana, you really start to think maybe that takes a toll, and then Indiana has sort of maybe that gets a benefit. But they do have Maryland separating them. I don't know. It's a tough spot. I think Ohio State maybe gets the revenge here and pulls one out. But
so
like I said,
you're picking Ohio State.
I think it's a coin flip game that could easily go the other way. That will be one on the margins. Like because when you look at that game last year, the coaching decisions probably made more of the difference than the actual playing. Like, Kurt Cignetti outcoached Ryan Day, and like the red zone offense, the misses in the red zone. That's what Jeremiah Smith actually said at Big Ten Media Days. He's like, "What'd you learn from that game?" He's like, "We got to score in the red zone." That was it, right? They do that. It's a different game, and so what lessons did they learn there? But Kurt Cignetti, obviously, will he coach as aggressively as he did in the middle of the regular season? Right, that was the Big Ten championship. It's a different game. It'll be just such a, obviously, so many storylines going into it. It'll be a fun game.
All right, so we're going 1-1. You're picking Ohio State. I'm picking Indiana. So I'm 7-0. You're 6-1, and then we've got Michigan. I guess we'll just do this quickly. I will say I had Indiana losing to Michigan basically just on the weight of what the schedule's done to them so far, that they've had, they'll be back. They'll be coming off, obviously, the emotion of the Ohio State game. It'll be their third road game in 4. I think Michigan's maybe a little bit less talented this year. That's kind of the feel around that program anyway, that maybe the depth of high-end talent has been sort of drained a little bit by some draft issues and obviously what else is going on up there. But I also just think Kyle Whittingham's a good coach, and I think that's a tough place to go win a game. Indiana hasn't won there in decades. Do you feel differently?
Yeah, I think Indiana wins this one. It's hard. Yes, the road games add up, but I think everything you talk to about coaches is that means so much less than it did years ago now, because travel is so much easier. Right? It does not take the toll that it used to. Like you're not, it just doesn't. Like you're flying first class accommodations in and out, and especially with Kurt Cignetti, who doesn't like to spend any times.
It's not like the team playing in Major League where
it's like touchdown. It keeps running and just waits for Kurt to kind of give him the signal, and we're gone. And so it's like I don't know that makes much of a difference. Obviously, the big house, if it's sold out, the atmosphere there is going to be intimidating and a fun one. Michigan's a hard team. Does Bryce Underwood take a huge step forward? They lost a good amount of talent. Running back who I really liked is now Georgia Tech, Justice Haynes. It's just hard to know what to make of Michigan and how that one all comes together.
And Bryce Underwood,
especially at mid-season,
you hear Bryce Underwood has taken some steps forward, but what does that mean for a sophomore quarterback? That is fair. Where it's kind of like if you told me Michigan was 6-1 or 6, 5. I don't know if they have a bye before this, but 5-1 or something at this point. I believe if you told me they were 4-3, I'd believe you. So it's hard for me to know what Michigan
struggles. It could go either way for that team. Obviously, they're building. They got a lot of issues that they're trying to kind of correct on and off the field with that program, and so it's sort of like, you have a coach that I think will get that ship right. what that looks 7 games in against the defending national champion. I think that's too hard, a big of a hill to climb for them that early in his tenure. Even though I think it'll be a disciplined team, and I think it could be a close game. Like it'd be surprising if it was
like an Iowa last year kind of thing.
That would make more sense than a Nebraska in 24. I guess would be like I think it'll be a challenge. I just think it's one that Indiana will be able to beat.
So we've now got both. We're both
the
at
same
records,
essentially.
6-1, just different ways. All right, so let's do kind of Halloween and after, and kind of sprint through this. And I didn't want to spend maybe more than the first half hour on the schedule. Minnesota, I think, is the kind of game that if it was on the road or if it was timed differently, I might have a little bit more time for PJ Fleck here, but I just don't see Indiana. I think like Minnesota, has a little bit of disruption along its defensive line. Fleck teams generally tend to run the ball well, but it's just hard for me to imagine Indiana losing this game on Halloween, on homecoming, at home. It's hard for me to imagine that. Anything different from you?
No, I mean because they got sophomore starter. Did he start last year with Drake Lindsay? Looks like he did.
I think he might have split some time, but yeah, they have an experienced passer back.
But I mean, he's not in the same level. Like to me, the back half of the season after sort of like the Michigan game comes down to do you have a quarterback or not? And Minnesota's is not in the same category and doesn't sort of wouldn't concern me as much as the USC and Washington of it all, where I think those quarterbacks maybe put you in the conversation and elevate that to a game where it could give Indiana problems. Whereas I don't necessarily put Minnesota on that same level.
My only concern, if I'm, we talked about kind of the idea of injury luck, like where's Indiana physically? Like the depth needs to have held up, I think, by this point in the schedule, because you will have played at this point.
But that's a caveat for every game. Like if they go into Ohio State without a major player, like you take stock and things change. Sure. Like, I mean, yes, hanging over all this is like, and they got not lucky, but like the position, they've had a backup at the positions, a ready-made sort of backup at the positions they've had injuries at. Obviously Curtis Rourke with the thumb was sort of the one where maybe like the biggest sort of the wrench in things, but obviously Taven Jackson did a nice job in that one start he had against Washington. But otherwise, offensive line, Drevin goes down, they got a starter ready to back him up. The defensive end, they had multiple guys sort of that they thought ready, to sort of step in. If there's a position, like tight end is a position where they're already very thin at. Like, does that, like what happens if they have an injury or two? Or even linebacker, now obviously with Kellen Wyatt sort of maybe not an option right away. Like if Isaiah Jones goes down, like what happens? Like, like that might be one of the spots where that would be like the biggest impact, like an injury would have if they were to lose him or something like that. Because Fisher went down last year. They had Jones like ready, and he knew he could play any of those linebacker spots. They don't have that ready-made replacement.
At least not that we're aware of. I mean, it's like the offensive line where they might have somebody they like. We just haven't seen them, but yeah. So all right, so we've both got Indiana at 8-1 going into their bye week on what is that, like November 7th? I think is technically the Saturday. They come out the other side, probably a big noon game, I would guess. USC, Indiana. Jaden Mayava was really good last year. There is certainly a feeling that maybe with the transition to a GM style sort of, process at USC that the physical level is elevating there, but especially if this is a big noon game and USC is playing this game at 9 a.m. LA time, I could see a world where USC moves and scores a little bit more on Indiana than the average, but I still think Indiana wins this game. That kind of team, like teams that have given Indiana trouble, whether Indiana's won the game or not, in Curt Cignetti's tenure, have been teams that could meet the physical challenge Indiana presented. And if Indiana is anything resembling in that USC game what it is right now, I don't think USC can do that. And so Mayava might have some good throws. You might see him score a couple touchdowns, but I don't think USC can win this game if that's the case.
One of your 5 things was in coaching, was it? Like game.
It was,
game
yeah,
training?
yeah.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah,
because that would be like where the difference for me comes in this one. That I have more faith in Curt Cignetti's and his staff game planning against UNC and winning a big game than USC is doing it, because just that Lincoln Riley has not necessarily shown that yet. Winning big games successfully.
I'd also throw this at you too, and USC will be coming into this off their bye week, but September 26th, USC hosts Oregon. The next week they host Washington, then they go to Penn State, they go to Wisconsin, which they get a bye, then they go to Wisconsin, which obviously shouldn't be that difficult. Then they host Ohio State. I don't know that there's necessarily a feeling in the sort of national realm that like this is a do or die year for Lincoln Riley. But I will say that this is the kind of schedule where if let's pick out Oregon, Washington, Penn State, Ohio State. If USC goes 1-3 against those four and comes into Bloomington with 3 losses, like there's not. It has the capacity to be one where like the wind is just completely out of USC sails, and there's just not any like they're barely in the playoff picture. There's not any feeling that it's moving in the right direction. There's almost a feeling like this was supposed to be the year we started to feel it turn, and now it's not. I think like that's and I guess the opposite could be true, certainly, but. I look at that schedule and I wonder just sort of like what is the momentum going to feel like around USC getting into this game, because it's going to be one where I think USC really needs to feel like it's got some real energy and some real momentum. If it doesn't, like this is the sort of game where Indiana just kind of smothers a passing attack that doesn't get enough support from its run game or its offensive line and wins in the end comfortably.
And it feels like a game that could go the way Oregon's did last year, where you put it all on the quarterback's shoulders, and then if a couple of mistakes happen and things kind of snowball from there. Like because to your point, like if Indiana's sort of like the more physical team, and you can't get anything going in the passing game, the wheels can fall off pretty quickly.
Washington is the other one, and I. Sort of like I coin toss between thinking Indiana could lose at Michigan, thinking Indiana could lose at Washington. Both come after at least what will be probably hyped home games. Obviously, I don't think USC will be as physically demanding. I do think that there's a real boom or bust. Like Washington's got to replace Jonah Coleman, which is no small thing. He was one of the best backs in the conference over the last 2 years. The idea of like an elite defensive line against a truly dual threat quarterback it feels very like all or nothing sometimes. Like either the dual threat quarterback is just befuddles the defensive line, tires it out, runs around it, puts in a great day, or just gets completely overwhelmed by the fact that he's never got time, that there's always a defensive lineman in his backfield. I went with Indiana in this game, at least if I'm remembering my predictions correctly. But again, it's Husky Stadium. Washington might be playing for something, again, a little bit like USC, but now you're on the road. Washington might have something to play for, might have an iron in the fire on the fringes of the playoff conversation. That's a tough place to play. It's a long way to go. Indiana's not been fazed by going out on the West Coast either the last 2 years, and that's one of the reasons why I picked them. But I do think this could be a difficult game for Indiana.
Well, yeah, like I said, I think you separate it and what we've seen, how important quarterback play is, and obviously with the returning quarterback who, has shown quite a bit of talent, you just feel like those are games that are going to, because what we've seen with Brian Haynes due to sort of inexperienced younger quarterbacks, guys that have more experience maybe aren't as susceptible to some of the stuff that they do, even though it's still effective. They're just not as confused. It's not as deer in headlights, right? It just seems like that if you're sort of like a first-time starter going against this defense, it's just a real struggle. So I just put those games in sort of a different category as like, I think they'll be more competitive. I think Indiana still wins. Yeah,
no, I'm with you. And again, like in no small part because it just feels hard to pick a team to go 12-0. Like it just, the things that need to break your way for that to happen in any situation.
Because I could, and to your point, I could easily see them going 10-2. I think it'd be easier for them to go 10-2
than 12-0.
Than 12-0.
Because
I have said, I just like, and even in that start in 24, like, it almost got derailed by the quarterback injury. Like that thumb thing could have been just a much bigger deal, and they got lucky. You only missed one. Curse Rourke only missed one game, but like just the things that need to fall into place for you to do that injury wise, health wise. Like it's such a challenge. And there can be so many variables that it doesn't speak to like them being less talented or them necessarily making more mistakes or something like that. I just think it's a hard thing to ask to be perfect all the time.
I also just
all the breaks go your way.
Yeah, and I think it's also just the way these matchups line up too. Like last year, Indiana got a comfortable gap between almost every one of its big games. Like they had to play Illinois and Iowa back to back, but then they got a bye before Oregon. They got a month until Penn State and another month until Ohio State. The fact that you've got these difficult matchups, you've got sort of, in particular, the Ohio State-Michigan turn, but to an extent, the USC-Washington turn, both times the second difficult game is on the road. Those are both in the back half of your season. And there is no gap between them. I just like the balance of probability says to me Indiana loses one of those games. And I get it sounds simplistic to say because obviously 10-2 is probably just statistically likelier for almost everyone than 12-0. But I just think that the way that this schedule lays out and the assumption that at some point something probably has to go wrong, like just bad luck or bad fortune or something, like a weird call, I don't know. It's just easier to see 10 wins than 12 wins. But I still settled on 11, and I think 11 is for me the likeliest outcome. Where did you – I guess first let's answer this question from Hooperazzi. Will Purdue score a touchdown in the bucket game this year?
Well, that was sort of one of my over-unders, kind of related.
All right, so we'll get to that. We'll get there. Right. Over unders is the last segment. Does Purdue lead at any point against?
I thought you were going to say leave. I thought you were going to say leave.
Just leave. They did last year. Did they not? Didn't they kick the field goal to go up 3-0, and then Indiana scored 56 straight?
That was Maryland. That was Maryland. I thought.
Maybe I'm thinking about Maryland. Anyway.
You are always thinking about Mike Loxley's.
I assume. Well, I'm just waiting for that gift basket. I assume we're both good picking Indiana to beat Purdue.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, and apparently we will discuss that more.
So, do you think the margin of victory? Like, I mean, to point not to score, but the score, because that ties into the thing. But like them scoring points. But the margin of victory, where does it fall in the last two? How was it? 60? What was last year?
It was 66 and then 53.
Yeah. So where does it? So
I think it's. I'll say they split the difference. Let's say like 57 or 58.
Okay, so middle. You think it's higher than 53 though, because
everybody. It's at home. Everybody thinks because of the comments that were made recently that Kurt Cignetti's going to run it up or whatever. I think he showed last year he's not a run it up coach. He'll put the
comments by the AD. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
But I think the other thing too is number one. I think we both agree it's going to be a physically demanding schedule for Indiana, and you might want to rest some guys if you can in this game. Number two, I will go ahead and say this, and if you want to disagree with me, you can. I think Indiana's going to be playing in the Big Ten Championship game the next weekend, and so there's going to be a healthy sort of once this game's in hand, we shut it down and start looking.
It's more of a can Purdue stop Indiana's backups? In the last 2 years, they have not. Yeah.
Well, okay, to be fair, Curtis worked through 2 touchdown passes in the fourth quarter, so they weren't going against the backups in 24. But yes, in 25, I mean, was it Davion Chandler was ripping off 56-yard touchdown? Yeah, like just basically. All right, so we'll wrap with the Big Ten Championship, then we'll go through our predictions fairly quickly because I don't think those are going to be that bold, frankly, and then we'll talk about your over-unders. Do you think they make the Big Ten Championship game, number one?
Well, if at 11-1, I would think that'd be hard. There'd have to be tiebreakers for them not to, right? Basically.
Yeah, and I mean, I think to beat Ohio State, so that's a key tiebreaker. Right. I also just look at Ohio State's schedule and think it's kind of hard to see Ohio State getting through that schedule without a couple of losses. Now, the flip side is if Ohio State is just, being with Ohio State again, they'll go 12-0 and it won't matter. But you have them at 11-1?
Yeah.
Okay. I do too. I think they make it. Who do you think they're playing?
Like you said, I mean, the schedules probably don't set this up, but I would selfishly want to see a rematch against Ohio State.
Yeah, I think Oregon is likelier.
But based on like the schedules of it all. And
do you want to? All right. So then I'll give you two scenarios then. Indiana, Ohio State. Who wins?
If it's a rematch, I have a hard time believing Indiana because it's hard to win those. So I think Indiana wins the rematch.
Because you think Indiana's going to lose to Ohio State in Bloomington.
Correct.
I think they play Oregon, and I think they win. So I think we're both sitting here and predicting. Josh Post says wrong. It's Iowa. Someone says don't sell Penn State. IU fan in Texas says don't sell Penn State short due to the schedule, and that is fair. Penn State's Big Ten schedule is not altogether formidable. It is still just difficult for me to sort of know that is going to click at the level necessary for them to win 11 games or 12 games.
And they had that kind of talent last year. And I mean, things obviously fell apart, but they're not going to get better by losing that whole backfield. It's it's just like,
right. They're transplanting a good culture from Iowa State, but let's be also fair. It's not like Iowa State was just running
12 games,
the table,
right?
and right, exactly. Penn State's schedule this season is Marshall, Temple, Buffalo, Wisconsin at home, at Northwestern, USC, Michigan, at Michigan, Purdue, at Washington, Minnesota, Rutgers, Maryland. So, I get why people say it's possible that Penn State could be in this conversation. But I still think it winds up. I'm with you. I think it's either Ohio State or Oregon. I think it's going to be Oregon. Either way, we both settle on 12-1 and Indiana winning a Big Ten title, repeating as Big Ten champions. We're not going to do the playoff. It is worth saying I undersold Indiana by 2 wins in 24 and by 6 wins in 25. So at some point, I'm finally going to oversell them. But we're both pretty bullish, it's fair to say. Which makes this segment maybe not that impressive or exciting. I did you do bold predictions?
No,
I did 5.
I don't know how you'd get to 5 because it's
none of them feel that bold.
My bold prediction is that I don't have very many bold predictions. I don't know.
Yeah, because we both talked about this. The bold prediction would have to be that
they're not as good. They're 8
right.
Yeah,
or that they don't go to the playoff. They lose all their coin toss games, whatever. I think I had all right. So I'm trying to remember what my 5 were. 1 was that Indiana was going to go back to the Big Ten championship game, and I just said they're going to win the Big Ten championship game. So that's already out.
But you're the defending national champions. I don't know how that's
right.
Yeah.
Really quickly, John Jacobs is asking questions about kind of personnel and where things stand. Andrew Barker at tight end, Rylan Gandy at corner. Is worth saying we will have our regularly scheduled podcast probably Thursday, maybe Friday, and we will talk more about the Kellen Wyatt, Stephen Daly situation. We'll talk more about kind of maybe where some position battles shape up heading into week 1, all those kinds of things. This is really more just a season preview thing. But we're going to do I'm promising 2 podcasts this week for that reason. Mark Hess's bold prediction is Indiana's defense doesn't allow a touchdown all season. That would be 2001 Miami stuff. And if they do that, then if that happens, I will hold my hand up and say Indiana wins another national championship, and possibly the NFC South. But I think the other 4 were Jamari Sharp as an All-American, Toby Osunsami as first-team All-Big Ten, 1,000-yard rusher in the regular season, which Indiana's not even really come close to in Kurt Cignetti's first 2 years. I think Kalen Black might have had 866, or maybe Roman Hemby had 866 going into the Big Ten championship game last year. That's the closest he's been. And then Josh Hoover will throw for under 3,000 yards just in the regular season, not going into the postseason, just in the 12-game regular.
Wait, the 3,000 yards thing doesn't even include so now it isn't even under 3,000 yards.
I'm basically just arguing
garbage. Oh my god,
garbage,
terrible. Cancel the thing. These are not bold at all.
I promise people these would be underwhelmingly bold.
Just you should say are underwhelming predictions.
Maybe italicized predictions rather than bold predictions. Not quite as impressive.
The one that I keep
struck through predictions.
The one that I keep coming back to is Toby Osunsami doesn't lead the team in sacks. That's my boldest prediction.
Okay. Were we going to do one of those? I think we're going to talk sacks.
Over under on sacks totals, but I just don't think he ends up leading the team in sacks. That's maybe my boldest take.
I guess what I would say is I think the natural extension of my prediction about first team All Big Ten is he does. So,
but I also don't I don't understand. Like, you've done
some,
this a couple years in a row where you've said, "Oh, this is a bold prediction. He's going to make All Big Ten." Who doesn't make All Big Ten? Because you got two big All Big Ten teams from the coaches and the media. You got honorable mentions where I think what is it, one vote? So like that counts, right?
I said first team All Big Ten.
Oh, first team, okay, but that's still
I may not have said something in my in bold predictions, but I will say it here. I think first team All Big Ten.
Okay, well that's slightly better because like otherwise, like I mean, like All Big Ten, like I mean, like you have what 18 players.
I've never made All Big Ten.
All Big Ten reporter. Ooh. Honorable mention.
The media poll about the media. The coaches poll about the media.
Not the coaches. No, you didn't make the coaches.
Every coach is voting against their own media.
You didn't make the coaches.
Not this list of people. Literally anyone else.
So
all right. So are we ready for over-unders to kind of wrap this thing off?
Yeah. That's
all right. Here, we did this last year, and we wound up having, I think it's fair to say, some fun with these last year. I mean, I was living and dying with that EJ Williams.
I got to go back and see him all, get them all. We had Mendoza.
I know I hit EJ Williams over 24.5 catches. I felt good about that.
But I think we both. I was trying to get him, but I didn't have enough time.
That's what
I'll try to see what.
That's why I was mailing in my Alabama pick. I'd already, my season was over once.
Because we had the other one we did have. We had Fernando Mendoza over 3,200 yards. We both got that right. We both got right that Mikel Kamara would not get double-digit sacks, but we probably didn't go quite as low as he ended up having. But obviously had a good season with all the pressures. All right, so
you put these together.
The one that related to the Purdue thing, over under 1.5 shutouts. Because they have had one in each the last 2 years. The last two times they've had multiple shutouts in a season, I believe, 2017 and 1993. So not very common. Obviously very hard because I mean, like even think Western Illinois had a field goal.
Got 3 points.
So I mean, like it's not easy. And obviously, if you're going to play some of these lopsided games at the start, backups come in, anything could happen.
Yeah, that's what. So I was going to say two things. Number one, last season we saw like what really took away that issue was like a couple of those coverage breakdowns early, right? Like it and you may see some of that again. You're going to have one new starting corner. You're going to have a young player we assume it's Byron Baldwin at Husky. You got a new starter at safety.
I believe don't they call it Rover? Husky's the old.
Or yeah, you're right. Sorry. Yes, I'm still Tom Allen coded. But you couple that to the fact that Curt Cignetti, despite all the sort of like, Indiana just loves running up the score, Curt Cignetti is very comfortable pulling his starters. Early in I want to say early in games, but like if it's 41-0 at the end of the third quarter, those guys are sitting down now. The one way I think they get the over is the defensive line. If Daly and Wyatt are healthy, like you can put your second teamers in there and still have guys that are.
Well, they've got to be eligible too. But I get you.
Not healthy. Excuse me, eligible, but like fourth and fifth year seniors, and you may still just like struggle to literally just get first downs against Indiana's second team defense. But to your point, it's already really hard. I think there's a fair to good chance this is the best defense Indiana's ever had. And that's the only reason that I think it might be possible, but I still lean under on 1.5 shutouts.
I'm going over.
Okay. I mean, it's tough. Like I could easily see it. Because the other thing
to do, it's just a hard.
It is a hard thing to do. But the other thing worth pointing out is, while there are some spots where you say like who's the second corner, who's the third corner, where's the depth at linebacker, et cetera. This is increasingly though also Curt Cignetti's roster, right? Like the backups have been in this system for long enough that there's probably not a discernible gap once they get to the garbage time fourth quarter snaps where the other team might be putting its second team into. Certainly nobody's sort of putting in 100% effort if you're already down that many points. I'll say under. Like I'm tempted to go with you, but I'll say under so we have something to fight about all year.
But because to your point, if it's as historically of a good defense in terms of like Indiana, and I mean maybe that's not but like if it's as good of a defense as advertised, 2 shutouts is probably not a crazy ask of a team that's going to force turnovers, that's going to lock teams down, it's going to cause problems. Obviously weaker non-conference. Like if you had a Texas on the non-conference schedule, you only had 2 easier games. You got 3 chances in the non-conference, I feel like. And there's a couple opportunities in the Big Ten, and maybe they'll play Alabama again in the playoffs, and it could be close.
All right.
Offense, over under 39.5 points per game. Some context: they averaged 41 last year, finished 3rd in the FBS, averaged 41.3 in 24, finished 2nd in the FBS. 40 seems to be their number, but you've got them being maybe more of a run-heavy team, ish. Based on some of your other predictions, kind of like lining it up.
I just think they're going to be so explosive running the ball and so like I'm not sure how much that's going to affect their scoring, because I just think they're going to be so explosive running the ball. I'm also looking at this now, at least, and they, as you point out, they have been that team twice. At least one Big Ten team has averaged 40 points per game in 5 of the last 6 years.
And it's sort of weird. Stats. So they've got like the non-conference schedule. Obviously, Old Dominion sort of held them down a little bit, but they still 56 against Kennesaw State, 73 against Indiana State, obviously 77 against Western Illinois. Like that does sort of help those games. Like it gives them sort of a running start to sort of like add a little bit to those numbers. But they got some defensive-minded teams sort of in the Michigan, Nebraska, try to on the road.
Northwestern, yeah.
Aiden Child's going to play DB. So where are you at? 39.5.
I mean, I'll say over, because I don't think the explosiveness is going away. And to your point, I think there are going to be enough games where the number gets big that maybe outweigh an Ohio State. Because here's the thing, you point out Old Dominion, but like also remember they only scored 28 at Penn State, they only scored 20 at Iowa, they only scored 13 against Ohio State last season, and they still averaged 41 plus. So yeah. It's not like they weren't held to some. It's not like they were not held to some some very low numbers at times relative to their eventual average last season. So I'll say over.
The Illinois game helped, obviously 63 points.
Well, and maybe there aren't the weight of what you're going to need is for Northwestern, Rutgers, Purdue, and maybe one of Nebraska or Minnesota to turn into like a 40 plus point game, because like Maryland, UCLA, Purdue, think about some of the games that just got completely out of hand last season. You're going to need some of those. But like I said, there were already so many games last season where Indiana's scoring average would have been dragged down, that turned to defensive, that turned into kind of slugfests, and they still averaged that number. They only hit that number once in the playoff even. So I will.
But they exceeded it by quite a bit. And they came close against Alabama, so
sure,
that's a little bit of. I'd say over. I think for me, it's where they score on the margins. They make special teams plays. The turnover margin has been huge for this team. Like the field position battle, they're used. I mean, how many times they started out with a short field. Like those things add up and just add to points. Like even if they weren't sort of as explosive for some reason in the passing and run game, like they still find ways to score in other ways, just because like when you only have to go 40 yards, it's easy to get points, right? Like, and so I feel like in some of those games, like you said, not maybe Ohio State's the world, but they will find ways to sort of just against Northwestern. It's going to be hard for, I think, Northwestern to hold them down, and I especially at home this year. So like I feel that's where they will kind of not run up the margins, but be able to sort of maybe lock in that hit that milestone again. All right, next one. Let's see.
There's 41 and a half. Was it 40 and a half or 41 and a half points per game?
I said 39 and a half. I just said over
39 and a half. Okay.
39 and a half.
All right.
Well, so this one, this was got an A and a B. It's related to the receivers. So, what? But so you got to think about the talent they have and where the receiver room's at. 1.5 1,000-yard receivers? Alternatively, does somebody finish with 79 over under 79 and a half receptions? Because the record, single season record, is James Hardy 79. What was that 2007?
All right, so I'm going to say under 1.5 1,000-yard receivers. That's just a very hard thing to do. Like you've got to throw the ball a lot. And again, if we are foreseeing a lot of these games, Indiana running the ball well and pulling their starters because games are lopsided, I don't believe Indiana's had a 1,000-yard receiver in either of these two
No,
seasons.
they haven't. So Cooper,
and I know,
but if Cooper stays healthy, maybe in that Ohio State game, he probably hits it. He had 937. Surratt, who obviously missed, was it 2 games?
Yeah.
He had 830. So he got close. And the previous season he had 957, but obviously they didn't have a second guy.
But you're also counting on, to your point, like guys get hurt, and so and you also probably, Indiana may well play 16 games this year or even 17 games this year, but you can't assume that.
Correct.
We're already being bullish about them going back to the Big Ten title game. Like you can't assume they're going to get a full playoff run either. I'm going to say under 1.5 1,000-yard receivers, and I'm also going to say under, was it 79 and a half catches or 70? So I'm going to say under because 2 things. Number one, again, if I look at the way this offense has been structured, it spreads the ball very effectively. That's one of the real strengths of the pass game. I know the receivers will probably be more involved this year as they sort of figure out what they've got with these young tight ends, but still, it's not like they were going crazy on the tight end 2 years ago and they were still spreading the ball around a lot. Number 2, I was around for that 2007 season. Like, to understand what it takes to do that, and that was a 13-game season, you have to force feed a receiver. And Indiana could do that with Hardy because he was huge. Like Hardy was 6'4", 6'5", with a basketball player's wingspan, incredible athleticism. He was the classic, just sort of, he is always going to play bigger than whoever is covering him. So you could do that with Hardy in that season. I don't think, I don't think the offense wants to do that with a player in this offense. And I don't necessarily think there's a player that is just going to have that much of a center of gravity. So I'm going under on both of those.
So you have to average about 6 receptions a game if you're playing 14 games essentially. So that would be like the Big Ten title game and 1 playoff game. The receiver would have to average about 6. I think I'm going to go under on the first one, but I think it'll be kind of close, like it was last year with Marsh and Becker, or Becker and Marsh. Because like you said, I think the tight ends will be slightly less involved in the passing game. I think they have slightly. We'll see. I think on paper right now they have slightly less depth. If those young guys like a Davion Chandler sort of steps up and becomes sort of like a real contributor, maybe it kind of spreads out. But like you said, if they're in a lot of blowouts, it doesn't even matter because they won't be on the field. So I think it'll be tough. I do think I'm going to go over. I think somebody's going to set that record this year. And I think it's going to be Becker.
Okay. I don't know. It's a big number. I'm going under on both of those. All right.
Next one up.
What do we got? 2 defensive ones to wrap up here?
Well, 1 defensive one. I had
right.
This one's yours. I'll give you credit. Over under 9.5 sacks for an individual.
I'm going to go over. The defense has shown it's possible. That somebody did it 2 years ago. Obviously, I am high on Toby Osunsami. What Elijah Hardy had, I think, 8 last year. So it's not like Indiana wasn't that far away last season from somebody hitting that number. And
Indiana's only had 5 or 6 players in history to have,
it had been a long time. I think Jimmy Curley was the last double-digit sack before Mikhail Kamara, if I'm not mistaken.
Who was it?
Jamie Curlew.
Yeah,
and
it was
2008. And then the year before that,
Greg Middleton, 27. Yeah.
But I think there's the personnel there. I think teams are maybe going to try and stop Indiana just by clogging the middle of that defensive line and hoping that quarterbacks can get the ball out, basically. And again, somebody did it in this defense 2 years ago. Somebody came awfully close last year. I think somebody does it again.
I'm going to go under. I think it's going to be spread out.
Like it was last year.
I think that you're going to get a lot of push in the middle of the defense. And it's hard, obviously, for those guys to kind of get, over 10 sacks. But it helps the edge guys obviously get it. You're going to see a lot of rotation, I think, on the edge as well. So that sort of dilutes maybe like the individual numbers for like one guy. I think Hardy maybe ends up, as I said, Osunsami doesn't lead the team. I think Hardy probably does. But again, it's hard for a linebacker to sort of maybe push to 10. But I think you're going to get a lot of guys with like, 7-8 sacks, 3 or 4 guys like that around that number. But no one breaks 10. It's a tough number to break.
So
right, we can do,
if you have one more, let's do one more and then let's get out of here.
All right. Well, this one's interesting. Over under 199.5 carries for one of the running backs. It's an interesting one because Hemby had 230 last year. He was the first Kurt Signetti running back since 2019 to have over 200 or more carries. So it's not something that he's typically done. Obviously, the playoff run sort of helped. Obviously, they got 3 backs this year, kind of going into it, saying they're all sort of on even footing-ish. What do you think? And obviously, you said the running game is going to be a success, but does that just mean got one guy steps up here and there and they rotate? Is it one guy emerging? And this kind of says how you kind of envision that running back room taking shape.
I think so. Turbo Richard, obviously, Kobe Martin's never come anywhere near 200 carries in his college career. Turbo Richard set a personal record last year with 145 carries. Lee Beebe had 166 in 24, but history has told us that running back rotation tends to narrow down to 2. And if I have to pick an odd man out right now, it's the one that, fair or not, is coming off the knee injury. I'm going to go. Here's my one question. Stall me for just a second while I look at what Indiana did in 2024. So in 2024, nobody had more than 159. So I'm going to go under on this. I'm going to go under just because the weight of history, plus the fact that if my argument is these guys are going to be more explosive, then that's maybe more yards but fewer carries, right? So I'm going to go under.
So you're going to go under. I to be a contrarian, I'm thinking about going over because I do think it's going to narrow to 2. Because I think it's hard thing to sort of maintain a 3-back running rotation through the whole season. But if they're not, but if they're not in as competitive games for if there's only like 4 or 5 competitive games, it's tough to sort of get to that number. You probably have to sort of play a deep postseason run. So I'd probably say under as well, even though I hate to agree.
All right. So to recap for our over-unders, and then we'll recap the show because we're already over an hour. We should get out of here.
We went an hour and a half last year. We're just soft. You're just soft.
Yeah. Well, apparently.
Did you have one for Hoover? Wait. So before I get to that, did you? Because like you already said your week prediction with the 3,000-yard thing. Like I thought about doing over under 29.5 passing touchdowns because that would put him.
Well, how about this? Over under, and I know this isn't as clean, but his benchmark his last 2 years has been about 3,400 yards. He did 34 something, and then 30.
Yeah, but you said already something. Under, right?
Well, but we're talking about the whole season, right? We're not just talking about the regular season.
Oh my god! But you did not in your own, not in the written ones that you did you?
Okay, so do you want one or not? Do you think given a including the postseason, do you think Josh Hoover reaches let's say 3450? Because like if you want his history, he's a starter for the best part of 3 seasons at TCU. First year, 2,206 yards. Second year, 3,949 yards. Last year, 3,472 yards. He obviously did not play in their bowl game, which he probably gets a little bit closer to his 2024 number if he does. We've already said we think he's going to play 13 games. He's also probably going to see some much better defenses and potentially sit in more fourth quarters. I don't know how many extra games you want to give him beyond the Big Ten championship game, but do you think he gets to 34-50, which would more or less match where he got to last season? He was at 34-72 last season. All right, here, cleaner way. Does he throw for more yards this year than he did last year? Over, under 3,472 and a half.
I'm going to go under.
How many did Fernando Mendoza wind up with last year? I think he wound up breaking 4,000 in the end, didn't he? Pretty sure he did.
No, he didn't.
No, he broke 40 touchdowns. That's what I'm thinking of.
3,535 because Sudfeld's record.
Yeah.
He didn't set Sudfeld's record.
That's right. I'm going to go over. And the reason why I'm going to go over is twofold. Number one, I do think Indiana's going to play deep into the playoff this year. I think their defense is good enough to do it. And number two,
so did your 3,000 yards include the Big Ten title game or no? Just the regular?
No, I just confined all those predictions to the 12 games in the regular season.
So if they play the postseason games, he's going to have to average like somewhere around 250 for you to do this.
I guess, yeah. I can't do that math in my head that quickly. But I look back and there were still just enough Fernando Mendoza games where I wonder if Hoover can't grab like an extra 50 yards in I don't think North Texas is as good as Old Dominion, for example. And I wonder if Hoover can't grab another 50 yards in whatever the equivalent of the UCLA game is, or whatever the equivalent of the Maryland game is. I think he's I don't know if this receiver group is like head and shoulders better than last year, but I think you've got more explosiveness on the outside, and that's a throw that I think Hoover has shown in his film that he likes making. So I'm going to say Hoover more yards than last year. So you ready to recap these?
Is he a Heisman finalist?
Yeah. Because a quarterback in a Big Ten, a statistically productive quarterback on a Big Ten championship team is in that conversation, right? Like that's just
who didn't throw over 3,000 yards at that point, though.
But neither had Mendoza by that point in the schedule last year, or maybe I think he broke 3,000 yards in the Big Ten championship game. So, all right. So just to recap, we both have Indiana 11-1 in the regular season. I have them losing to Michigan. You have them losing to Ohio State. We have them winning the Big Ten championship. I have them beating Oregon. You have them beating Ohio State. Our bold predictions, well, really my bold predictions, because you weren't bold enough to make any predictions, are Josh Hoover under 3,000 yards in the regular season, Jamari Sharp, an All-American, Toby Osunsami, first-team All-Big Ten. Indiana has a 1,000-yard rusher in the regular season for the first time under Kurt Cignetti. That's the one I honestly feel least good about. And then our over-unders, 1.5 shutouts. Mike goes over, I go under. 39.5 points per game. Offensively, Mike goes over, I go over. 1.5 1,000-yard receivers. We both went under. 79.5 receptions for one individual player. You went over, I went under. 9.5 sacks for an individual player. You went under, I went over. 99.5 or 199.5 carries for a single running back. You went under, and I went under. And Josh Hoover throwing for more yards than he did last year, which to clarify is 3,472. I went over, you went under. There we go.
Good stuff.
He's Mike Niziolek. I'm Zach Osterman. One more time, the book is Unthinkable to Unstoppable, How Kurt Cignetti and the Indiana Hoosiers Stunned College Football. You can pre-order on Amazon right now using that QR code up in the top left-hand corner of your screen. If you're watching on YouTube, check the show notes. If you're listening on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, we will be back Thursday or Friday with more of our regularly scheduled Mind Your Banners. We will talk about some of those position battles that people have been asking about. We will try to update you with the latest, whatever it is. We don't know what it is, frankly, at this point. point on Kellen Wyatt and Stephen Daly, or at least we don't know any more than we did yesterday when we found out that at least for the moment they are eligible to practice but not play. And we'll really just start priming the pump more for week 1 against North Texas. But this has been the big, bad, beautiful 2026 IU football season preview. He's Mike. I'm Zach for the Bloomington Herald-Times, for the Indianapolis Star. Thank you so much for listening. Again, scan that QR code if you'd like to pre-order on Amazon now, and we will talk to you very, very soon.